City.
Thank you very much. Welcome to TSP HQ.
What a lovely, beautiful office.
Thank you for having us, by the way.
It's a pleasure.
So, to start off, you started your career from our research at Goldman Sachs, is that correct?
I did.
So it's not exactly sort of a typical launch pad into real estate. How did you go from banking to starting up a business in the property world?
So I went into banking because that was the thing to do back in the day when you were finishing from university. And the truth is, one of my main reasons for going into it was it had a really good starting salary. And it was an amazing experience. I spent nearly 5 years in banking. I worked here, I worked abroad. I got to do a stint in India, which was incredible. But it was never going to be for me long term. It sounds really cheesy, but I was the kid selling you something at school. I'm an entrepreneur. I wasn't going to be working for other people. And so in 2009, the world changed. We had this thing, which is long history now, but they're called the credit crunch.
Yeah.
And I was working in interest rates, and I saw that interest rates very, very quickly went from sort of 5.25% down to 0.5%. And at exactly the same time, property prices went down as well. And so there was this big market crash. And I was talking with a friend, a very old friend, one night at dinner, and we were both remarking on the same thing, saying this would be a great time to get into property. And we were having a cigarette out the back of his place, and we both said, let's do it. And so I literally went into work probably the following week or something like that and quit.
Wow.
And we started TSP.
Wow. And even doing that, like you said, in 2009, like it's a ballsy move to do it then.
I think it's probably less ballsy if you think I was 25 when I started the business, no wife, no kids, no mortgage. So I actually often admire people who do it later in life when, you know, they've got responsibilities and other things. So yeah, I suppose to some it may look like a ballsy move. I probably felt in the back of my head, I've worked in industry. If I need to jump back in, I can get a job. I've got experience now and what have you. I think it was probably more ignorance and naivety than anything. In terms of just jumping out and do it, but you can do that when you're young.
Yeah,
Sure.
so ignorance is bliss.
100%.
So let's get this straight. So Goldman Sachs launching a property company, but you found your niche in the non-profit sector. I feel like that's pretty unheard of. Talk to me about that.
It was an accident. So the idea was when we left Goldman's was that we would go and buy real estate, which was very cheap, that had fallen down in value. And we had this feeling that over the next few years, property prices would reflate. And so we went and found deals, and then we needed to find money to buy these deals because we didn't really have enough money to buy anything ourselves. So we ran around investors and said, we've got these great deals. We think this is an amazing time in the market, you know, to get in, and we'll buy the deals, we'll manage them, and we'll turn them around and we'll sell them. Every single investor we went to said, what are you talking about? We've just had a huge market crash. You've got no experience in property. You're 25 years old. Please leave. So our whole business plan was basically up in smoke because nobody actually really had any money. And if they did, they were very clever people and they weren't going to go and give it to a couple of 25-year-olds that had no experience in doing this. So we had to kind of go back to the drawing board and think, right, there's other opportunities in this market. Let's think what they were. And at the time, there was this big headline going on about high street vacancy, like the high streets in the UK were dying because as a result of the credit crunch, all of these shops closed down. And it was really sad because these high streets were like the centre of the kind of local community, you know, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker. And when you saw the newsreels of all of these high streets, you could see that a certain type of business hadn't closed down, and actually there was more and more of them, and that was charity shops. And so we suddenly started looking into charities, and I remember we were like researching it at the time, and there was 170,000 registered charities in 2009. It's probably a similar number now. Very few of them have debt. They're very ethical organisations. And when you look up most of these charities, they don't really have property people in their organisational structure. So they're one of the biggest freeholders and leaseholders in the UK. And we kind of looked at this and thought there must be a play here. And no one really specialises in them or represents them. And the play basically was, if you're the only show in town that can pay rent on the high street and the rest of the high street is vacant, you have huge leverage to do deals with your landlord to get rent-free periods, to basically get money off, to save money. And so we came up with this idea where we went to all of these charities and we basically said, we will save you money. And if we don't save you anything, don't pay us anything. But if we do, pay us a share of what we save you. And so we started hitting the phones from a little room in Hendon. And we started to get one little charity after another, some with 2 shops, some with 3 shops. And we call up the landlords and we'd be like, hi, we want you to give us 50% rent discount for the next 2 years. And they'd be like, what are you talking about? And they'd be like, sorry, if you don't, we're going to move to one of the 30 other vacant shops that's on your street. And obviously landlords who had these charity shops were petrified of losing them. And everybody started giving us these amazing rental deals. The charities were thrilled, they were saving money. And that was the beginning of the business. So TSP is short for third sector property. The third sector is the charity sector.
Yep.
And then that very quickly escalated into a proper property service business.
Yeah.
So totally by accident.
Fell into your lap, quite literally. That's crazy.
Pretty much, yeah.
So you just said you kind of became this massive like commercial real estate firm. What would you say sets TSP apart from the other players in the property space? Like, what's your secret sauce?
I think one of the major things that makes us different is we think about things from outside of the industry. And I think that comes from me having founded the firm not being a property guy.
Yeah.
And I'm not really sure I'm a property guy to this day. Like I think more in a kind of opportunity-led way, in an entrepreneurial way. I didn't go to university and study real estate. I didn't do internships in real estate. Like I came in as a rank outsider to the industry. And I think that gives you a huge advantage in disrupting and innovating something, because you look at everything and to you, if it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense, and you want to change it or you want to question it. And I think when you come from within an industry, you're less likely to do that because you're kind of, you're molded into, well, that's how it's always been, and so that's how it is. So I think one thing is like we don't accept the status quo at TSP, and I think we apply a much more entrepreneurial mode of thinking to everything that we do.
Yeah,
Sure.
and I guess not just like that entrepreneurial drive, but also I'm imagining like your origins and helping the third sector. Has that kind of shaped the company culture here in any way?
Yeah, I think like they're wonderful organisations to work with, and like when you work with them, it's sort of like you see the best of people. You know, you see people that are volunteering for things and that are genuinely altruistic. It's not a trait that you could probably accuse me of being as a free market capitalist. But yeah, like we have maintained our third sector advisory department the whole way through the business. Like it's a much smaller part of what we do, but it is part of our DNA. It's not something that we want to lose. It ties in really well with our kind of sustainable platform that we run here. We're a B Corp. And so yeah, I guess it has shaped us. They are amazing people to work with. They're brilliant clients. And yeah, so I guess it has shaped us in some ways.
Yeah, I bet.
Just to interject, you say that they were amazing clients. What was it like? Because I can't imagine cold calling charities back in the day when you were like 25. Like, was that an easy job to do?
No, and we used to have to do it ourselves, and so like it was very old school, but like we wrote ourselves scripts. We worked out what it was that we were going to say.
Like Wolf of Wall Street
I'm
vibes.
thinking.
Yeah, it was a bit more innocent than that. I mean, like we definitely had some tricks up our sleeves. Like there was this concept of gatekeepers. So if you got through to the business, and it might have been a really good office manager that was used to people trying to solicit coming through, and so they used to become like a bit of a target for us, and we'd send them boxes of milk trays, or we'd offer to go and get them a coffee that they liked, or whatever it took. And we were utterly and completely fearless. And I think if someone gets that when they're on the phone with you, you know, every so often you'll get a chance. And you know, that happened to us on a number of occasions when we were starting the business, and we had some like real breakthrough moments that kind of, I don't know, I guess it's serendipity. It happens, and then other great things happen off the back of it. But you have to just keep throwing yourself at it. And I was there making cold calls like, hi, it's Zac Goodman, I'm from Third Sector Property. We work with a lot of charities at the moment trying to save money on your rents. As you know, it's a really tough economic climate out there. But you as a charity, leaseholder and what have you, have a few options at the moment to potentially save X, Y, Z. And we've done our homework on them. I still know it, and I remember it was really stupid. My email address was zac@thirdsectorproperty.com. And it was like, and they were like, so can I give you my email address? And it'd be like zac@thirdse. And it was like, we realized very quickly we needed a new domain.
TSP,
So we bought tsp.co because csp.com wasn't viable, and suddenly that made life a lot easier.
That makes sense. So Zac, you're well known for having invested in a lot of properties over the years. How would you say that's given TSP an advantage?
Over our time as a business, we've had an investment side to our company where we have co-invested and sponsor-led office redevelopments, repositionings. And so when you do that and then you have to like manage through, you really get the 360-degree view of what's happening, from site selection to underwriting to raising equity to financing, to getting through the due diligence, to getting onto site, to having your asset strategy, to refurbing, building, planning, you name it. And then you manage that property through and see the full life cycle of it. And it's also given us huge opportunity to tinker, which we love to do. So we've always viewed a lot of the investment properties that we've been involved in as our labs, where if we've got ideas and they're difficult to sell to clients, if something's new, we can do it ourselves. And 30 Lighterman was a classic example of that. This was a building we bought in 2019 in King's Cross. And we had this concept. We were like, we need to fully furnish this thing, Cat B, speculatively, the entire building, and then let it as managed space. And I remember at the time in the industry, it's not that long ago, but everyone was like, are you crazy? Like, you do one floor, you don't fit out everything. And when I say fit it out, like, there was fruits in the bowls, there was scatter cushions, this thing was done. And we had to come across some like really challenging things, like how do you just fit out the whole thing? Like, how do you allow swing space so that people can shunt around the floor plates? How do you allow this idea that people can come and personalize that space? How will this work? How does the short lease work? How does the service pack work? Anyway, long story short, we did 30% higher rents than we'd underwritten, which was on a conventional basis. We won 4 awards for the building, including Best Workplace, the Estates Gazette award. And it became this amazing case study that many others in the industry went to, had a look at. I think to this point, it's still the only managed space building that has been sold in London, which we did. And so it gives you this advantage when you're investing in stuff yourself to really, it's your R&D, it's your labs. You can test things out and before selling the ideas to others.
In your opinion, what would you say are the biggest challenges or hurdles right now in the property industry, and what do you kind of find yourself at TSP struggling with?
I think probably the biggest challenge in the real estate industry is that, almost with a sense of pride, the industry has developed itself very slowly compared with other industries. And therefore it's kind of managed to have it its own way for a very, very long time. And the end user, the customer, the consumer, the tenant, the occupier, whatever word you want to throw at it, has kind of had to deal with that. And so landlords have predominantly set the terms and the tone for everything. That has fully changed. And it's been changing for the last 15 years, but property is becoming more consumerized. it's becoming a product, it's becoming a service. And as it does that, the tenant, the consumer, the customer is also developing with it, and their expectation is growing. And I sense there is an impatience from the people wanting to use property, that property isn't moving quick enough and it's not adapting well enough to this new world. And it's very tricky for a lot of landlords to suddenly change a business model that's been in existence for 1,000 years.
Yeah.
But that is what is happening. And it's most sort of visible in lease lengths coming down. Because lease lengths coming down is basically a change in the balance of power. Fundamentally, when it comes down to it, the shorter a lease, on average, the more purchase power the customer has. The longer the lease, the less purchase power. And that's why landlords are landlords. And that is this sort of the underpin of the whole sector. Forget interest rates, forget inflation, cost of materials and what have you. Those are cyclical factors. We've had high interest rates before. We've had high inflation before. They go up, they go down. That's just a question of time.
Yeah.
What's actually happening beneath the real estate industry is a much, I'd call it a mega trend, which is a behavioural change in the use of property. We expect to be able to use property in the same way that we can get subscription boxes through the post, and that we can, it's pick and mix now.
Yeah.
And that's really challenging for an industry that just hasn't previously had the infrastructure, the wherewithal, the means, the good practices to deal with this. At the same time, where this challenge, again, a bit like when we started in 2009, it suddenly opens up a massive sort of avenue of opportunity. And I think you can see real winners and losers in the market right now, and there's sort of the trends that tie them together.
In recent times, what have been your guys' biggest achievements?
I think last year being appointed as the property manager for the British Museum,
Oh, wow.
an organisation that's hundreds of years old. It's actually one of the larger property estates in central London. That was a definite phone mum moment.
That's amazing.
And yeah, I'm really proud of it. It's obviously round the corner from where we are. It's a very recognisable thing. It's known worldwide, and yeah, that felt incredible to get through a really competitive process and come out as the winners of that.
Amazing.
And some very exciting things will be coming to your museum over the coming months and years.
Okay.
Great.
And then in terms of the flex side, what is your view on the flex market? How do you think the future is going to pan out?
So we look at the office segment in general as exactly that. It's offices, but it's a case of how you take them. And so I think at the moment in the market, you've got your traditional and you've got your flex. And actually we see two worlds colliding, like convergence.
Yeah.
TSP's offering sits in the middle of that. So fundamentally, we set ourselves up, and our relationship with landlords is as a managing agent. But it's a managing agent that focuses on hospitality, on front of house, on experience, on creating community, on running events in buildings and what have you. And our business model is very different to that of, say, a flex operator. We don't go in on 10, 15-year management agreements. We're not trying to capture the entire value chain in terms of marketing and broking and tenant finding. And I think one of the reasons for that is fundamentally we only build things at TSP that we think will last for a long time.
Yeah.
And I think our vision of the future of the office is a multi-let office where on the first floor someone's gone in as managed space. On the second floor they've taken a traditional lease and they want to be left alone.
Yeah.
On the third floor they've gone in on a traditional lease but they want a few extra services. It might be cleaning, internet and what have you. And it works the same way as a hotel. Some people go into a hotel, they want the presidential suite. Some people want twin rooms. Some people want a deluxe. I think office landlords, agents, the whole of the world have to understand that this whole pure play thing, you have to go down one route, one strategy, is based on what works for the supplier, the provider. It's not considering what works for the customer and what they want. If you're someone looking for office space, that's what you're looking for. You don't wake up in the morning going, I'm looking for Cat B office space on a short lease, on a flexible term. They're like, I'm looking for a place to find a home for my business and these are the things and the constraints that I'm working to. bit like if you go for a car, two people can go into a car showroom wanting the same car. One wants the alloy wheels, the tinted windows, they want the contract hire plan. The other person's buying cash. They want the estate version of the car. They don't mind the plastic hubcaps, but they want leather seats. Like, fundamentally, the office is the car. And what we package around that is choice and ease. And that's what we're giving to the customer. And I think everybody needs to realize that. And I think over the coming year, 2 years, you're going to see massive convergence. I don't think you're going to see this broker agent divide differentiation for very much longer. And I think that's a good thing for everybody. Because if the customer is winning, then everyone else is winning. And how did TSP fit in with that? We sit next to the landlord, ultimately. We don't go into other people's buildings and manage the space for tenants. We like to control the experience from the ground up. We believe that's where the most efficiency can be delivered, and therefore the best value in terms of pricing and the best throughput in terms of revenue to the landlord. We think there are old school fundamentals in property management that need to continue through into this new wave of offices. But we love all the additional services. For us, our product has become more sophisticated. It's become more challenging to run. It's become more interesting. We get to engage in so many different disciplines which are just brilliant to work in, like creating events at building. Like, who would have ever thought, if you'd gone to a property manager 15 years ago and said, you're going to be responsible for ordering vol-au-vents and finger food at lunchtime, like, they would have laughed in your face.